Good Gab, sponsored by Skillskin, a nonprofit organization empowering individuals with disabilities through employment. What's happening, everybody? Another great guest today. Today we get to learn about the best kept secret in Spokane. I want you all to get involved, whether you can give money or get on the wait list for volunteers. You're going to hear more. Today we have Steve Paul from North Pole Adventures, the CEO, Chief Elf, just a man of magic. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
How's your morning going?
You know, it started as a Friday. I hope to end it as a Friday. So
we'll see how this goes.
Let's see if I'm more successful this week.
I like it. Yeah, I was out in Vegas last week, and it was so nice. It was sun and pools and all the things. And get back on the plane to Spokane, and winter had shown up.
Yeah, we tend to have all four seasons, which is can be a benefit or not if you're not a Four Seasons person.
Well, and thank goodness I am. That's why I love to stick around here. And I think it's just perfect and apropos to have you on today. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about your organization.
Hey, my organization that I am CEO and Chief Executive Elf with is North Pole Adventures. We are a nonprofit getting ready to do our 27th event in Spokane.
That is incredible. 27 years.
Yeah, we're the best kept secret in Spokane.
Well, let's let our listeners know more. Because I remember when I heard about your event, and I was like, wow, this is one of the coolest things I've ever heard of.
So in 1997, two gate agents from United Airlines went to a corporate event on the East Coast that was encouraging gate areas and stations to come up with a community-centric event. And most of it was centered around Christmas. They were either going to do Christmas parties or Christmas wish events, types of things, either at the gate or at a location. And the flight attendants, the gate agents, the pilots would all sort of participate from the airline to do that. On the flight back, the two gate agents were talking, and they said, why don't we use a plane? Because they always, in those days, stopped their route at the end of the night in Spokane.
That makes sense, yes.
Why don't we use a plane and create kind of a fantasy kind of event? And so in those days, the C terminal rotunda in the basement actually had a conference room.
Okay.
And the plane,
I remember those days. You could go. I would wait for my dad at business trips in that terminal.
That's
and
right.
be like sitting on the glass just waiting for him before, you couldn't get back there.
And so the 727 plane in those days had the drop-down staircase in the back. So they would put the kids on the plane, kind of run around the runway, back up to the terminal, lower the staircase, come out downstairs, have a little party in there, and Santa would show up. And they had planned that on the flight back for 1998. And Mel Lubick, one of the first two sisters, we call them, had said, well, let's just do it this year. So 1997,
They were like, well,
let's just go.
Doing it.
And
I love the doers of the world.
That's right. Leslie comes from a theater background. Her husband ran a lighting company here in town, so they had connections, and that started the first Fantasy Flight. Quite a few that year started through multiple cities, Denver, San Francisco, Baltimore, all of those stations created things. But like many things in the airline industry, change happens quite a bit. And so Spokane was a bit more unique in that the gate agents were conversational with the passengers, and it may have encouraged participation with a few seat upgrades. And so we got a little more presence with the community at that time. I came to Spokane starting in the 90s, traveling for a position out here with Itron.
Okay, yeah.
And was approached.
Do you have an engineering background?
I'm a IT guy. I'm a techie.
Nice. So watching these smart meters come together, you were working on this
I was doing
25 years ago.
I was doing that a long time ago.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
And so I was approached on one of the flights as saying, hey, we we need a volunteer the next night.
Because they just knew you?
Because
'cause
I'm
you were
flying in and out
offline.
all the time. And I had asked about a poster that they had posted with some pictures, photographs. And so I said, sure, let me see what this large man can throw together as an elf in a few hours. So a trip to the dress barn in Post Falls to find some tights that would accommodate these burly legs, and a tunic, which would make me look like an elf, and a hat. And it was a 7 o'clock flight time because we needed to use the plane, and it arrived way too late the evening before. So it was a 7 a.m. Fantasy Flight start. At 4 o'clock, I arose, threw on this magical elf costume, and realized the tunic was a bit brief for an elf. So with some costume adjustments,
Some duct tape.
and some flannel boxers,
Nice.
we got on the plane, did our little magic. The staircase opened up, and I came down to the Spokesman Review camera, which was on the front page of the Spokesman Review. So thank gosh, I adjusted the tunic
No
in
kidding, 'cause
time.
that camera was up.
Yeah, it was. It would have been a non-planned exposure for my first time as an elf. From there, then 9/11 happened, and so 9/11 created a change in the organization, in that we couldn't even be at the airport.
Right.
We were able to implement a kind of a backup plan, and we set up the North Pole at the convention center and transported the kids via the Magic Bus from the airport. We were able to at least arrive at the airport, but the fire trucks from the airport or the Spokane Fire Department transported us down to the convention center.
Escort everyone.
Yeah, we had an
Cool.
escort. After that, we were able to kind of return to the airport, but unfortunately not able to fly, because after 9/11, again, a little bit of history for everyone in the airline industry, the planes that arrived in Spokane were smaller. The travel had reduced.
Right.
Passenger loads had reduced, and so the planes that we had with United were smaller, and we were unable to fly. We could taxi as we had done before, but we couldn't actually lift off. As the charity sort of grew, airline industry changed. In 2006, I was approached by the sisters, the United gals, who had said, "Hey, maybe you'd think about running this thing." And so I said, "Sure." So I spent a year practicing. So 2007 was my first kind of executive director of running the event. Had created email lists and things that the ladies had never had. I started with a checkbook of $600 and 30 email addresses.
Here, make this happen.
Yeah, and so 2007 is our first year. We have, as you all know from Spokane, ice fog, and airport got shut down in those days. There wasn't landing systems that let us in. And so I ended up with an event with a whole lot of people on one side who needed to get to a North Pole that's on the other side and no way to get there. So
How'd you pivot?
yeah, so I, being a technical person who deals with project problems, asked the ladies, "So was there ever plan B in your plans?" And they were like, "Well, once we had thought about taking school buses, but we're never sure if those would get approved to be on the runway." I said, "Let's get a meeting." And so we called in the tower and operations and FAA and TSA and all kinds of people, quick conferenced, and said, "With escort? Sure." So we loaded into school buses and surrounded them with emergency vehicles and flashing lights. And as I call it, Christmas magic always follows us.
Yeah.
When you put a lot of very warm bodies in an ice-fogged environment, the windows frost up.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
so once you put emergency vehicles with flashing lights around the windows,
Christmas.
It's Christmas. And the buses were completely followed all the way over. And when we arrived at the North Pole and the doors opened, there's the red carpet, and we were there. And so that was the year of the Magic School Bus flight on the runway at the airport. Probably not done in most cities, but that raised an awareness for me, not being an airline employee or professional, I need a better transport vehicle.
Sure.
So
And you're just, but it's all collaborative. Like,
and it's very, at that point, it was unfortunately very, I'll regret the pun, fly by the seat of your pants, to make it happen.
yeah. So you knew that kind of going in a little bit, like what about this event? Like just called to you and you're like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to bring to the community.
So one of the things I was taught as a child, all of my siblings is my mother had sat with all of us, once you sort of reached puberty and said, listen, I brought you into this earth not to take up space. So you plan your outcome, but make sure you make a difference. And I would hope you make a positive difference. So I got involved in high school in charities. I was an allocations agent for United Way. I did lots of different things. But in my family, Christmas was a very strong tradition. I have German heritage, and so I have Christmas ornaments that were handed down from great-great-great-grandparents that I have in my collection. And so when I came to Spokane, it was like, wow, this is the land of Christmas, and I'm kind of a Christmas guy. So when I hooked up with Leslie at the time at the airport, and it was a Christmas charity, I'm like, maybe this is my calling. So being a technical person, being a Christmas person, and a manager in my professional life, it was like this may be the best marriage of all of those.
Truly. Yeah. You can just put that all together.
Yeah.
All of your strengths at work.
All the strengths and weaknesses all come together in one event. So 2008 then was, okay, part of the plan is we have to have a transport. And that's when I approached the various airlines here in Spokane. Happened to have a contact with Southwest. They had expressed a lot of interest during the years, but once they kind of understood the logistics that I was presenting, they were like, yeah, our vehicles aren't necessarily available. They move all the time. So I had a neighbor who was a flight attendant with Alaska, made a phone call and said, hey, do you have anybody at Alaska? She's like, yeah, I just flew with the marketing manager. Called Alaska, explained the situation.
Oh, perfect.
And in 20 minutes, they returned my call and said, we absolutely will partner with you.
See, Christmas magic does follow you.
Right. And so 16, 17 years later, we are still great partners with Alaska Airlines.
Wow. Is that happening anywhere around the country still?
So we have done quite a bit of research. We've had news folks come in and do research for us. Though fantasy flights themselves have dissipated quite a bit, there are a few sort of targeted events where they bring children to a particular facility and maybe Santa flies in on a helicopter, or they try to take Santa on a plane and he arrives on the plane. But nothing in the world now that approaches what we have created here.
Yeah, so tell us about what this event looks now.
So today, 27 years later, we have 258 costumed volunteers at the airport. We have over 400.
It's a small army.
Yeah. I have over 450 full volunteers between creating the North Pole, creating the setup of the event, executing the event, taking the event back down. I have over 24 corporate vendors, supporters, over 1,000 individual supporters, whether it's a $5 donation or a $20,000 donation. We are known around the world through Alaska in their communication and their network. And we this year have elves from the east coast of Miami to Canada to San Diego, and a lot of spots in between.
Are these Alaska employees that are going to come out?
Many of them are. Many of them are Alaska people that in their network of communication and volunteering that comes in. Our pilot was a first officer in 2011. If you go to our website, www.nwnorthpole.org, and we have a library of memories, you'll see a CNN video in 2011. Eric was very quick on the camera, held into character because he is Santa's pilot and flies to the North Pole, and only he knows the way through the barrier to get there, and has stayed our pilot every year. It is a bid position. It's not allocated. You have to, as a pilot, bid to get that. He bid for that as a first officer until he had the very top position as a first officer and needed basically for his career to move to a pilot. As one of his criteria was, I also get to bid for the Fantasy Flight as a pilot. And he now has the respect of all the other pilots to make sure that Eric gets to bid first for the flight.
So the stickiness of volunteers, like when I first heard about your organization, it was from, the person who, our executive producer, Dana Devine, she said, hey, I've done this work. This is what I've been talking about. She just spoke so highly of your organization and just the event itself. And it sounds like so many people, including you, you're like, this is amazing. So from the children's perspective, it's like, what kind of joy are you bringing here? So it makes you want to show up and do all this hard work every year.
So from the children's perspective, we're dealing with a population that doesn't really get to experience Christmas to the point of making memories. And that's really kind of the core of my mission when I brought to it was, as a child, if I think to my earliest memories, they're of Christmas. They're of positive Christmas experiences. They're of aromas. I can smell the smells of Christmas. If I feel glitter, I can feel, it's tactile. It's all of those senses. But if you're raised in a homeless or underprivileged, underserved kind of population, you're not formed with those memories.
Right.
And so my thought pattern was, if you don't start with that as a base as you grow into an adult, what do you have to pass to your generation? So that's my goal, is to these children to be able to create a positive memory-making experience with all the senses, sight, sound, smell. All of those are incorporated into the event to make a memory. It takes multiple sensories to really lock a memory.
Absolutely.
And so we created back in those
You're using
early
that
years.
Science background.
I know. Sorry,
I love it.
It's all through me. We take the database that we've created of individual attendees, and we make certain that every attendee, it's their first time, because we do it as a once in a lifetime to serve as much of the population. Right now, we're approaching 1,600 children that have experienced this. We work with the shelters, St. Vincent de Paul, Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, and Transition for Women, and have for 20 plus years. A few agencies have come and gone or merged. This year we're actually adding a fifth agency, which is the Union Gospel Mission Anna Ogden Hall.
Awesome.
So we'll have 5 different teams of children attending for their first time for the adventure of a lifetime.
I see it. And that core memory that can be created, it probably does. It can change someone's life. Have you had some people come and follow up with you later in their life?
So that's the best part of all of this, is the returning elves. Many of the kids, when they come in, they'll mention to their escort elf, I want to be an elf when I grow up. I want to come work at the North Pole. It sort of sets a goal in their mind. But their life goes as their life may go. And we don't necessarily offer great opportunities for that kind of thing. We have had at least 2 returning children that are volunteers. Both of them come with very long and interesting stories as how their life changed. But what I have learned is the mind as a child, once there are memories that need to go away for just management of your life, they all lock away. So all of the ugly gets locked away with all the happy. And so as an adult, it takes us a while to learn the skills of disassembling that. So if you're a young adult if you try to recall those things from your youth, it's one package. So
Right.
it's a lot of ugly with some happy in there. And as we mature and we get a little better to kind of balance those things, then you're able to
Some
extract
tools.
Right. You're able to extract, and relish the happy and focus on those positive things. And so for both of these return adults, they both went through that experience. And it was interesting to try to understand from professionals kind of what to expect and how to partner with them through that. One gentleman, when we first approached, he had a very difficult time even talking about it, other than I just sort of have a reflection of a memory. He kind of disappeared for a few years. He came back and said, I think I'd like to talk about it a little bit more.
Oh, wow.
So I sat with him. We spoke a little bit more, and he sort of, as we spoke, I would say, so do you remember these pieces? And it was kind of, again, a little more strong, but not enough until he actually volunteered. And then during the event, he would come up and whisper in my ear, I remember the pajamas. I remember the book. And then he said, and now I realize that as an 18-year-old, and having gotten thrown on the streets because I've aged out and no one wanted me, he said, I realized that the bag that I took with me was the bag I received at the Fantasy Flight. So you work through that. You become emotional like I am all the time. But then as he got more involved, he would come up to me and whisper in my ear. He's like, and now I remember the book. And now I remember these things. And so the joy of it has come to him now. And he has realized the opportunity that he had at the time probably wasn't as significant as it is to him today as a 26-year-old. I have connections through my professional life where they were a foster parent. And they spoke of a time when they had a child come to their door, and all the child had was a box. And so
We've heard stories like that
Yeah.
from some of our guests
Yeah.
who are in the foster system.
And he said that the box seemed kind of sacred, so they didn't violate it, and introduced him into the family, got him to his room, got him into his schools, got all thing through. It came time for Thanksgiving. And so in Thanksgiving in their family, they always sit around the table and chat and laugh. And then they have their moment and they say what they're thankful for. And so each of the siblings would stand up, and they all would stand at their chair and just say something that they were thankful for the day. And the parents did that. And so they spoke with this little boy and said, now, you don't have to do this. This is your first time. Please don't feel any pressure. And he said,
How caring.
No, I want to. I want to do this. So he stood up and he started to speak, and he said, can I leave? I'll be right back. So they were understanding. He went to his room and brought back the box. Now, none of them had known anything about this box. It arrived at the door and disappeared. And so he sat the box in the front of the table, and he said, I will be honest, I have had lots of bad things in my life. But he said, this box is all my good things, and I keep my good box always with me. And so he opened the box, and it was all of his memories from the Fantasy Flight. He had attended, but he had kept parts that were, to me, not significant memory makers. The cellophane around a candy cane. He had kept the tape that was on the envelope. He had kept just all kinds of fragments of things that I would discard as not useful memory keepers. They were all memory pieces to him. And he had said, so long as I have my box, I know I'll remember the happy time.
Dang. That's heavy and beautiful and magical.
So, those sort of stories are what kind of fuels my positivity that we can make a difference. Maybe it isn't every child. Maybe it's one a year. But it's better than none.
Absolutely. And that kind of impact, I'm rarely at a loss for words. I want to know how to get involved in your organization. It's like,
So
this is impact. This is why we created this show, is to talk about the good things that are happening in our world. It's not just good. This is the magic.
well,
This changes lives.
that's hopefully as I tell everyone, when I'm gone and you have to put a plaque on either a pile of dirt or a spot on the planet, just say he was an elf.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm a techie. I've done projects. I've delivered solutions. I've done those things. But if I've changed a heart or made a memory that's positive, then I'm an elf.
I guarantee that's happened. What's your career look like right now? Like your day jobs?
So my day job is really, really busy. I work for NG Impact.
Okay.
And I am a senior program manager, managing a lot of technology advancements. I'm juggling lots of different things within that job and have been with NG for now 9 years. Before that, I was a consultant with Microsoft. Before that, I was an employee of Microsoft. I've worked for tech companies such as Siebel and then, of course, Itron in the area. I've been in the tech industry 40 plus years.
Incredible. But you're going to be in Spokane for the long haul. This is your community.
Yeah.
This organization is based here. The magic is based here.
Yeah. I have no intention of leaving. I relocated here from the Midwest, but for Itron at the time. But yeah, this is where my dirt will lie, is here. And this town has a unique ability for this to flourish. I have been asked by lots of cities and lots of teams to try to bring Spokane Fantasy Flight on the road. And it just takes a lot of coordination and community to make it happen. You need a good organization that's a nonprofit that can function. You need the ability to work with agencies that are cooperative. You need to work with corporate sponsors to be able to fund it. You need to have an airport that can logistically manage sort of a non-traditional flight in the middle of their thing. You have to realize Spokane's largest flight is typically 200 people. I have 380 people at a gate. I'm a 747 in Spokane.
And they never come here.
That's right. And that doesn't normally show up. So you need to have, operations and TSA.
Federal agencies.
Yeah, we have federal stuff
supporting this.
Yeah. The FAA needs to do traffic management. You have to understand, I'm like a priority one flight, which there's another one of those that's real big and blue that gets to happen. And I'm one of those kind of flights that happen. So it takes a lot of that support. It takes a community with a heart, to be able to do what I do and to keep it a secret. As I said, I'm the best kept secret in town. To think this is number 27 in an area where normally they last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
They become sort of the bunco party of the office. And, we're not that. We're far beyond that.
Continue to evolve.
Right. And then you have to have a flight partner. You have to get somewhere.
Thank you, Alaska Airlines.
Yeah. Whether it's a train or a bus or a fortunate winged sleigh, as we refer to it as, you need that part. So once you get those 6 parts together, now maybe you could execute this kind of an event. I have a warehouse full of what makes the North Pole. We're fortunate that Signature Flight Support offers us a facility with a warehouse that we're able to do that. Otherwise, we're talking semis. We're talking a convention center worth of show that kind of shows up and unloads. And those are the things that, as CEO and thinking of the future, I need to think about something that's a little more mobile and immediate in its assembly and disassembly.
Well, you heard it right here, everybody. If you want to get involved, What's your website again, Steve?
It's nwnorthpole.org.
Nice. When's the event this year?
The event is in December. We won't publicly announce the time because for the safety and security of the children and the elves. And we're always have availability for enrollment. But I will just say we are the only nonprofit that I'm aware of that has a wait list for volunteers.
I can see why.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm inspired today. This has been magical. Thank you for coming today and helping myself, our listeners, just learn more about you, learn more about this Fantasy Flight event. Thanks for bringing the magic to Spokane.
Hey, thank you. You know, it's an honor. It's a privilege. It's a humbling experience to lead an organization that really thinks about the core values of children and what makes it great to be a child.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.